Okay, well, hello everyone. If you aren't aware, this is Ellen Explains It All, the show where I usually chat with our executive director. Is that her title? Yes, executive director, Amanda Chin. I usually just call her the big boss.
Still accurate.
Often, yeah. And demystify AWT myths, rumors, whatever. But today we are very lucky to be joined by our program manager. I am talking over myself today like nobody's business. Too much coffee. Reva Stover. Um, I have
Hi.
been dying to have you on, Reva. I'm sure if you've watched any previous episodes, like half the time Amanda's like, that's a Reva question.
I have. I have. I've seen it. I've been lurking in the background.
Yeah, so it's great to have you on. I've also been dying to like meet you, period. So this is a real treat.
Oh,
And thank you for hopping on.
thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Before we start, I usually ask Amanda a question about herself just to kind of get us warmed up. But since you're here, Reva, what is your favorite musical?
I have an off the bat answer immediately. I'm definitely a musical theater kid in my soul. I have a ring, but my number one spot is held exclusively for Into the Woods every
Same.
time. I love Into the
Same.
Woods.
I love Into the
I'm
Woods.
obsessed. That's my girl. Like I love that show so much. It
Yeah.
was the first show that I saw and was able to like stay awake through as a child. And the storytelling elements, now I make art for a living. It's like it just kind of it's in my heart.
Yeah,
I
that
love
was
her.
definitely the show. Like, I grew up a real like theater kid, like all the way back in elementary school. But that was the show I watched in I think middle school that like really ignited that love
Ooh,
for musical theater. So
so
I definitely
beautiful.
relate. I love Into the Woods.
Such a good show. Good to know you have great taste, Ellen.
Yes, same, likewise. Well, since this is your first time on the show, Reva, I figured the best way to organize this was sort of as an AMA or an Ask Me Anything, basically keeping things pretty open. If you've ever been on Reddit, you should be familiar with the AMA format. Usually, a celebrity, which I would say you're a celebrity, um, hops on and answers um, anything. I think we got some really great questions, and I'm super excited to jump in. But before that, as always, I want to remind everyone that if your question is skipped, it's probably because a similar question was already asked. And if it's reworded, that's only for clarity purposes. No tea, no shade over here on Ellen Explains It All. With all that out of the way, are you ready?
Let's dive in.
Great. Okay, first question. And I will say this was one that had a few repeats. So if your specific one is not this one, here you go. Do you take suggestions regarding what upcoming main stage shows could be? And if so, how should one go about it?
Yeah, this is such a great question. It's very exciting to me. I This is one of my favorite parts of the job, other than getting to interact with the community, is like getting to pick the seasons. I am definitely open to suggestions. You can post your suggestions in the Facebook group because I just go there casually to see what the community is up to, which I'll talk about.
Mm,
So you can definitely post them there. You can tag me. I'm obviously also in the group. You can post them and be like, please look at this. You should do the show. I make no promises that the show that you have suggested will be select. Okay. There's many reasons as to why. I'm sure we'll get into why that might
yeah,
not be the case. But I would really love to hear what you as a community are excited about working on. Because first and foremost, I want y'all to have a good time. So yeah,
absolutely.
please do, please.
Yeah, great. Can you describe the sequence of how a show goes from being suggested to acquiring the rights to have it done? Kind of related.
Yeah. So I'm like trying to math the steps in my head. So suggestion is normally me now. I mean, I can't speak for Amanda's process. This is my
Mhm.
show process. Is normally me coming to the team saying, isn't this cute? We should do it. And they're like, okay, cool. But they're like, I don't know about that. Or they're like, we did that 2 months ago. And I'm like, so true, bestie, we will not be doing that then. And then once everybody is like, for the most part, they're very supportive of what I select and they just let me run wild in the wind. So once I've selected the show, I apply for the rights. Once we've applied for the rights, I apply for a blanket of shows, and then I start reaching out to creative team members that I feel would fit the vibe of any of these shows. This is an array of shows that we might be doing. If we don't get these shows, what are shows that you as the creative team would be
Mm.
interested in working on? And then those are my next round of applications that go out. How far am I supposed to be going with this? To the show. So what happens? So um, the teams are selected. Once we get the rights to the show back, it's like, yay, good times at Ridgemont High. Everybody's happy. And um, then it goes out to you, the participants. And Meryl does a lot of magical work with the website and marketing materials to make sure that you understand kind of what the program is and what this show specifically is, what the themes are, and the opportunities to perform across the cast list. And then you come to your launch day. We have several meetings in between as a creative team just to make sure that everybody is on track, has what they need. Um, but mostly it's the creative team like runs with their beautiful creative vision, and I just check in and make sure they've got the tools that they need for the job. And then we have launch day, and then you know the rest
Yay.
because you've been. So yeah.
Yes, wonderful. Oh, another related question. I guess these are going to be related because of your job. Duh.
Of your job. So
Yeah. What are the shows that Afterwork may never be able
mm,
to do? And if so, for what reason? For example, show rates are too expensive, lack of diverse casting, poorly aged material, etc.
yeah, yeah, that's a great question. Actually, I asked a very similar question in my interview for this job. So I'm
Oh,
like, yeah, because I was like, tell me what my limitations are. So I get it. I get the desire to know. You sneaky sneak.
yeah.
I never say never.
Mm,
Never say never. That being said, there are shows that are going to be less likely to
mm-hmm,
happen or more difficult to happen. So like there are shows that we apply for that we just cannot, for the life of us, get the rights to. And it
mm,
really would be a great fit for AfterWork, but we just can't get the rights. They're very popular shows or the rights companies are really, really specific about what
mm.
they do and don't, promote. I just applied I can tell you now because I didn't get the rights. I just applied for Heather's for an
Wow.
upcoming season. I will not tell you which one it is. And they were like, no. And I was like, why? Please, please.
No.
Right? It's so sad. Like, who doesn't want to do Heather's? And that doesn't mean that we never can do Heather's. It just means that's been a little bit of a struggle for us to get
Yeah.
the rights for that. The same thing could be said for like cast size. If
Mm,
there's a cast, and I'm sure that we've all experienced shows, maybe not at AWT, but like out in the world as we're engaging with the arts, where it's like, oh, it feels like the ensemble is not really doing anything,
mm-hmm,
or we don't get to do much. It doesn't feel like there's a lot of activity or fun, like juicy stuff for us to dig into. I'm probably not going to pick shows like that.
mm-hmm,
And like a great creative team can make magic happen with a text that makes the entire ensemble feel really included and become alive. That being said, they have to have a text that supports that. So I do think about that when I'm picking shows. So it's never, never, but there are some things that are just harder than others. Come from away. I would love to do come from away.
mm,
Those rights are hard to get anywhere. Like
yeah.
they're really hard to get their hands on. So I'm like, I don't know why they're so picky. Such a beautiful show. I would love to do come from away, but they said no. So we have to be patient. We're just going to be
Mm,
diligent. We're going to keep a
yeah.
watchful eye. But yeah, the most foremost things is just having access to the rights. Like they will let us have them, and the amount of people in the cast that we can then stretch and make work for the purposes of AWT.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
such a bummer about Heather's. I love Heather's.
I weep. I weep. I'm so I
Uh,
that's in my top three faves of all time.
yeah, yeah,
Good Lord.
bummer. All right, well, Live and let live. Is the theater space booked after the show rights are acquired or before? If after, what decisions go into booking which theater? For example, the John Cullum versus the 14th Street Y.
Yeah, I uh they are for the most part booked in advance of
Okay.
knowing what the shows will be because space is really hard to come by. Theatrical space is really hard to come by, especially in New York City.
Yeah.
It's just really difficult to find reasonably priced spaces that fit AWT's needs and like get what we're trying to do here. I feel like there's a lot of feelings about these these theater spaces. People have very strong opinions, and I'm new, so I'm just coming
Yeah.
in and like entering these spaces for the first time and observing. But what I have witnessed, and I would love for people like in the comments or in the Facebook group to you can call me out and be like, you don't know, because I'm happy to learn. But from my experience, all theaters are gross and old and kind
Yeah.
of falling apart. Like I've never been in a theater that was nice unless you want to have to like deal with going into the school system and like
Mm.
going to some and even those are like gross and old.
Yeah.
It's just slightly better maintained because that's the nature of theater. Like Broadway theaters are falling apart. They're all falling apart.
Yeah.
So I'm like, really? We just get the space where it fits in as long as we can fit the people and y'all can move around.
Yeah.
That's really the core of it is just having the space to gather. And I feel like I was introduced to a lot of these theaters, this year, my first year at AWT. And I was like, wow, what character, what culture, what
Yeah.
ownership the community of AWT has over this space. And like people just walking in and knowing exactly where to go and knowing exactly where to put their stuff down. And like, this is the seat I like to sit in. I think that's the beautiful thing when we think
Hmm.
about space and like, oh, I don't like this space. I do like this space. Totally understandable. I've been in enough gross, weird theaters. Like, I totally understand. But I'm also like, just take a little second to sit in the magic of getting to feel like you have ownership over your gross, weird theater. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, that's such a beautiful thing. And it's rare, especially in adulthood. And you get that with AWT. Cherish that.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm done
Totally.
now.
I totally agree with you. Yeah, like you said, even the Broadway theaters are gross and old. So,
Like, you know, we've got to love
yeah.
all of our children equally. You know,
Yeah.
they're doing the best they
Yeah.
can. Yeah.
Does potential casting choices and or potential returner retention rate ever play a part in show selections? Or is the goal to have more newbies join after work?
I mean, yes, in that
Mhm.
we want to grow the community at AfterWork. So, I'm like, this is a thing that people generally would be excited to participate in. And if you get an exciting show, we are more likely to have newbies come in and be like, oh my gosh, I've always wanted to be in this show. And
Mhm.
now there's this opportunity. So like that's beautiful. But I'm not like, forget about those returners. Who cares about them?
Yeah.
We're just trying to get these new folks in here. Like we want you to have a nice time. I frankly though, that is like probably second to last on the scale of what I'm thinking about when selecting a show because first and foremost, it's got to be a vibe, like it's got to be a good time.
Hmm.
And I think if we can find shows that are a really good time, they're going to serve both the returner and newbie populations. I do take into account when returners are like, we really wanted to do this show, and it's a lot of people saying it. One person being like, I want to do Anastasia is not going to make
Yeah.
me want to sign up all these people to do Anastasia that might not be interested in that show, even though people love Anastasia. No shade to
Oh,
Anastasia.
yeah.
It's a great show. To the past. Poetry. Um, but if a lot of people are saying, we've always wanted to do Anastasia, bring Anastasia to AWT, yeah, I'm going to work a lot harder to make sure that gets on the docket because everybody is really excited about it, or a large group of people is really excited
Hmm.
about it. I'm trying to please the general masses, with
Yeah.
vibes and challenging artistic freedom.
Yeah.
Wow, that sounded so hippy dippy, but that is my stance. So, yeah, I hope that answered the question.
Yeah, I think it does. It might sound hippy dippy, but I love it.
Thank you. That's really all that matters here. I'm just trying to impress Ellen, honestly. Everybody else can go home.
That's very easy to do. Okay, this is a multiple part question.
Okay.
Is there a set budget for every show? How is it typically broken down? Is tuition really covering the current show people signed up for, or is it actually going into paying for the next production?
Yeah, these are great questions. These really are such great questions. Okay, so yes, there's a budget for every show. Theater runs on budgets, like America runs on Duncan.
Right.
And we just we would not be able to continue to put shows on if we didn't have a budget. Both things are true in terms of the money that is paying for production is both tickets and also participants, you know?
Hmm.
In order to not have to like price gouge and absorbently charge people, we offset that cost with ticket income so that we don't
Hmm.
have to, charge $1 million and we can offer things like financial aid and services like that. So yes, yes, and yes, and all the things contribute equally. Oh, there was a question about the breakdown of the budget. So theater budgets are largely broken down into like a normal budget into like the money that you expect to make and the money that you expect to spend. So for the spending budget, it's like we have to buy space, we have to pay for the rights, we have to pay the creative team, we have to hire a band and pay for props and lights and
Hmm.
sound and all these things. So all of those get broken down very, very specifically. And this goes way back. I do not build these budgets. That's still Amanda. I don't like math.
Yeah,
I
same.
can do math, but I really would like to never do math. Uh, Amanda does that, or and Meryl, because they're so good at everything. Um, but they break those things down very specifically based on the cost of services, how much time and space we'll need, and then there's money built in that is a small buffer in certain places that can be moved around depending on the needs of that production. Some shows are more expensive than others, and often the budget is reallocated every year. So you'll re-examine the numbers and come back next year and say, oh, we actually needed more money for rights. Rights have gone up, the
Hmm.
budget to go up to accommodate, which may increase other things, but we try really hard not to, have that affect participants' bottom lines. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
What decisions go into thinking a show is better as a boot camp as opposed to a full stage or a full main stage production?
yeah. I also was like, how are you doing this? When I
Yeah.
first got here, like so enamored with the process and like the
Mm.
thoughtfulness of AWT. This is really just me coming in as a newbie myself, being like, wow,
Yeah.
everything is beautiful here. Um, so the difference really between a boot camp and a main stage, or an out is how many people are in it. It's almost
Mhm.
always how many people can I fit in this in a meaningful way. If I like, for example, Little Mermaid was a recent boot camp, right? That happened in Tarzan. Those are great shows with relatively large casts, but it
Mhm.
becomes really difficult when you try to extend that cast and shove a bunch of ensemble members in there for them to have a meaningful experience and not just be like, I'm ape number three. I came
Mhm.
out and I waved, now I leave. Because
Yeah.
actually, without then taking away opportunities from somebody else who might have gotten that principal role, because really the
Mhm.
only people that ever talk are principals. And the same thing is true in The Little Mermaid. You can all be mermaids, but are you going to do that for 7 weeks? Where
Yeah.
you have, where you have, or 8 weeks, where you have far less um, agency. It's just we can't flesh those things out as much so they become boot camps. But they still have to fit the vibe, the AWT mission, be really fun and engaging and reasonably able to be accomplished in a week.
Mhm.
Some shows are hard. Some
Yeah.
shows are really hard, and it's not reasonable to ask people to learn them over 1 to 3 weeks. So those things don't make good boot camps. I have lots of dreams for boot camps. I think it's one of the most exciting structures for programming at AWT because you don't see that in other places, especially not for adults. So it's really cool to be like,
Yeah.
oh, I get to have this like a whole taste of this show in this like truncated period of time. It's magic. So yeah. Did I answer the question at all, or was I just yapping?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, my first boot camp was just Tarzan and it was super fun. Again, it was something like I did a lot in like high school, like those little like 2 week like
Yes.
shows, and it was like just great to like revisit that like style. Yeah.
Yes. And in that truncated time, the like community, the bond that you have with the
Hmm.
folks there, because you're like, oh my gosh, we gotta go, we gotta, it's just, it's beautiful. It's
Yeah.
absolutely gorgeous. If you have requests for boot camps, I'm very open to hearing them, please. Thank you.
You heard it here. Send your messages,
Very
make your
open.
posts.
Yes. Make your posts, send the emails.
How does the shadowing program work? What are the qualifications and what does the application process look like?
Absolutely. I'm so excited that people are becoming very interested in the shadowing program. So basically, this is just a formalized version of what has already been happening at AWT, which is people express their interest in a field. And then when the creative team has the capacity to support that learning, we throw you on the team, baby.
Mm,
And it's a lovely chance to observe not only that specific field, but also just how like creative works at AWT from behind the scenes. You might sign up as a stage management apprentice and then realize that that's not really your ministry while you're in there and be like, I'm
mhm,
going to come back but for directing instead. Like, that's totally accessible. There is no mandatory amount of experience. Um, and it's not like, oh, you've been with AWT for 7 years, so now you
mm,
get to be an apprentice. It's really just based on the needs of the creative team in the season. Not every creative team will have the capacity to support an apprentice, so it won't be for them, you know. But when there are opportunities for apprentices, it'll be announced. I think I did in the Facebook group, and it'll be announced on the website as well to sign up if you haven't already signed up. And then we just go through and I'm like, here are all of the options of people. These people have had the opportunity before. If you've had the opportunity before, I might be less inclined,
mm,
because you already got to do it. Now let somebody else do it and then we'll come back to you, type of thing.
mhm,
In that specific field. We've got really great creative team members that are like really excited to help bring people up and bring people into that space. And so it's like such a great learning opportunity. And it's just fun. It's just
mhm,
fun. And you get to be a part of all the tea. You get to sit in on casting. Like it's just a good time, you know? If you have questions, you can always reach out to me again via email. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. The application is just a form that
mhm.
exists on the website under a tab. I think it's like work with us or like get involved. Um, and then you fill out the form, and then I'm like, oh wow, a form, and I read it, and then I compile all the things. So it's really very chill. I would just encourage people to not get discouraged if they don't get picked their first or second time, because there's a lot of interest in it.
Mhm,
And we're trying to spread the opportunities as much as possible. That's the purpose of the program. So
mhm.
it might not be right now, but it doesn't mean never.
Mhm.
Doesn't mean never. Hold
Yeah.
tight. Yes.
I have kind of my own follow-up question and a question I've
Yeah.
heard other people have. So when you fill out the form, does that form then just like exist in on like a list or do you have to fill it out again each season or no?
No, yeah, it just exists. So
Cool.
I'm keeping it in the way of a database of people that are
Mm,
interested. And then every time that there's a season where an apprenticeship is available, I will go through the entirety of that list all over again. I will flag people that have already been selected and they'd be moved to the bottom of the list for that position. So if you said, I want to do stage management, choreography, and directing, and then you got to be stage manager next apprenticeship season, I'm not going to look at you for a stage manager, but I might still consider you for directing.
hmm.
Especially if you work hard and you are helpful, because it is a job for the creative team that they love to do, but it is work. So we're looking for ways to make their lives easier in addition to helping people grow and learn. So if they come back and they're like, this person never wanted to help do anything, they refused to
Mm.
stack chairs and they were rude to the participants, you're not coming back. You can't
Yeah.
be. To people, you know? I'm kidding. Never say never again. But you can't be mean. You can't be rude. You can't be giving people a hard time or making the work environment difficult or unpleasant to be in. There's always another chance, of course. I'm not gonna throw anybody over the cliff because you messed up one time. But be thoughtful, be considerate when you're working with these people because they are giving up their time, their
Mhm.
resources, and their knowledge to help you grow. And they're not getting anything additional for doing that. They do it
Yeah,
because they want to do it. So,
totally. Related to what we talked about before, and I think I might know the answer to this. Why do we use the John column so much?
it's there, it's available. She's relatable and she fits in our budget and she like they treat us well. I
Hmm.
think is also part of it is that they love AWT. And when we think
Hmm.
about spaces, especially in New York, it's rare to find people that are invested in your community and the work that you do. And so these theaters that we work with, whether it's the John Cullum or the 14th Street Y, are a part of our community. That's why we
Hmm.
continue to go back to them, in addition to the fact that we can afford them.
Yeah.
They're available, which I would say are the largest reasons.
Yeah, totally. Space is hard to come by in these
Yeah.
parts. When you're indecisive on choosing what kind of theater production to take on, which of your instincts do you tend to follow? Example, brain, heart, gut.
I think my first instincts always come in my gut, and then my heart explains what's going on, if that makes sense.
Mm.
I'm like, oh, something isn't right here. And if you sit in it, like love always leads the way. It'll always be like, oh, this feels wrong because it's not inclusive. This feels wrong because, these people are not going to be served by this. And then you're like, oh, right, okay, we'll do something else. So I think my gut, but my heart is tag teaming.
Hmm.
Yeah.
How far out do you have to request rights to a show?
Oh my God, months.
Yeah.
Months. At the very least, 4 weeks. That's if you're highly favored, like blessed and highly favored.
Mm.
Really, you're looking to have 3 months out, have submitted.
Wow.
That's my sweet spot. Maybe more than that if you can get it, but three at the minimum, 6 weeks.
Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's tight.
What plays a bigger importance in the shows that Afterwork does? What the creative team wants to do, what theater venue has been booked, or what show hasn't been done at Afterwork yet.
Mm. I mean, don't. I never considered the space that we when picking a show, so probably not that. And I do care about what the creative team wants to do. Sometimes I pick shows because I think that they're timely or poignant, or they would best serve the community, or even challenge the creative team members that are there. So I guess it's the creative team. It's not really, AWT is not opposed to doing things again. So it's not really
Mm.
like, oh, we've done that before. We don't want to do it again. I guess creative team, mostly I'm like, I like it.
Yeah.
And it's got something to say and it's going to be a good time. But yeah, creative team, I do care. I do care that they
Yeah.
want to do the thing that they're.
Yeah, totally. Can you consider releasing the types of programs for the year in January, such as winter, musical main stage, sing out, play, spring, musical main stage, dance out, musical boot camp, etc., etc.? Knowing what programs will be coming next will help decide what to sign up for at the beginning of the year. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like yeah, it's a great idea.
Cool. Cool.
Yeah. I think it wouldn't be like, here's January 1st,
Yeah.
here's all the things. But I think definitely in the first like quarter, we could get that information out a little bit earlier to you all. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a great
Cool.
suggestion. Thank you.
Yeah. Oh yeah, these like there's like a group here that are like suggestions.
Okay. Okay, good.
Which I love. Can you consider booking small theaters for outs and plays and keep three performances rather than shortening them? Amanda mentioned this, but if ticket sales is a concern, can we move to a place with a lower price rather than taking away performances and opportunities?
I hear at the core of this is that we want to have more opportunities to perform
Hmm.
for these smaller programs. I hear that that is very valid. In terms of the space, child, we can't just get a cheaper space. You think if we could get a cheaper space, we wouldn't have got a cheaper space?
Yeah.
We're trying to spend no money. So, um, in theory, a beautiful idea. And the goal is never to take away opportunities for performance. I think that's something we could definitely like think about and come back to, but I don't know that the answer is just get a cheaper space. We might have
Yeah.
to brainstorm and come back to the table with that one. But
Hmm.
I think there's a lot of validity in the request.
Yeah. It's been great to see various classes are offered. I agree. Singing, tap, ballet. Love those. Are you planning classes too? If so, what are the plans for classes this year?
I am planning classes too. I have a
Yay.
disgusting little background in education, and I love her. We actually have a directing class coming up next
Oh, nice.
season. Very exciting. So we have ballet right now, then we'll have directing. I'm hoping that we can have at least one class every season so that there's an offering. Yeah, I would love to hear if you have suggestions about classes that you'd really like to take or things you want to learn about, because I can make I can make the lesson plans, I can make the classes make sense. Tell me what you want to learn, so that we can find some instructors. Because yeah, yes, get excited about the classes. Yes, that's very
Uh,
exciting.
my goodness, I'm excited about the directing class. I'm
It's gonna be fun
probably
season.
gonna sign up for that.
Yes,
Yeah.
you'll be in good hands.
All right, this is our last question. We made it just under the wire. When getting shows, are you trying to shape a certain theme for the overall season, or is it just whatever show you're able to book at that time?
I love questions about season themes. Me personally, yes, I am always trying to create a theme. As you might have noticed with this
Yes,
season,
I was gonna say.
with the Crucible and Young Frank, I am almost always trying to create a theme. I think the theme changes. Like I have a list of shows that I plan to apply for. And
Hmm.
then I'm like, okay, these are the themes that might come out of these shows depending on what I get, because you're not going to get the rights to every show. So it depends on what I get. And then I work with, for sing outs and dance outs, I work with the creative team to find a theme that matches the theme that I've kind of curated for the overall season. Um, and they're so creative. They're lovely. It's amazing how Outcast was like this beautiful amalgamation from Sharon and Michaela's minds, and like they're incredible. And so very exciting. But yes, I do try to come up with a theme. Sometimes themes are like we're telling stories, girls, but
It's
I'll
theater.
always get it back to the theater, but I'll always get it back to a theme because I think it just makes my life easier in thinking about crafting the season. I love a theme. Love, love, love a theme. I'm also open to theme suggestions because that gives me lots of wiggle room. I just like to hear from y'all. So if you have
Yeah.
thoughts, come chat with me. I'm nice, I promise. I'm sweet.
I love just throughout all these questions how like open you are to suggestions and Amanda's the same way and I think that's a special thing we have going on.
Yeah, that's the AWT way. Part of the
Yeah.
reason why I was like, I need to get in here. Yeah, this is great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
And it permeates through the community. It's a beautiful thing.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. I'd love to have you back on in the future for any relevant topics that might pop up. And thank you to the community as always for these wonderful questions. This was a really good bunch this time around. So,
Yes.
thanks,
Thank
guys.
you all. Thank you, Ellen.
And with that, I think we're done.
Okay.
Okay.
Can I click recording? I'm gonna stop recording now.